What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with the overall market and talk about some very important levels on SPY, Nvidia, Tesla, and the QQQ. I'm also going to break down what's going on with the news affecting the markets and the options chain on SPY that's going to be quite significant, and some very important levels to be watching for today during the pre-market. But before I do anything like this, before I talk about what's going on with the overall market, let me just mention a couple of things before starting. I'm firstly not a financial planner, so make sure you take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. And finally, don't forget about the Moomoo link. The offer ends very soon. If you deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks with a $50 cash reward. Offer ends in just 13 days, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, now let's talk about the market. How are things looking? So looking at SPY, we could see that we have some support right about here as the SPY is trying to hold up just barely. But like I said in my previous videos, these supports break all the time, and SPY could easily sink a lot lower as we've actually broken below our 435 support and 434.8 level during the pre-market. And so far, the market's looking very, very weak. We're continuing to slide amidst the bad news that came out involving Evergrande and also because of the Fed. So the market's just continuing to slow down more and more and more. And the question is, will we continue to slide going into the open today, or are we going to see the market try to bounce? Well, for now, it is looking weaker, but I'm going to break down more details about this. So for data, there's nothing big coming out today. We have some like crude oil counts data coming out. Nothing too serious, nothing too crazy. It's not going to affect the market that insanely. But what's going to be more significant is the options chain for today. We have over 1.4, almost 1.5 million of the calls expiring, or I think a little bit more than 1.5 million now, calls expiring for today. And we also have almost 2.9 million puts expiring today alone. We have a 2.04 puts to call ratio just on SPY alone with max pain at 439. So lots and lots of puts are expiring. The bears are in and they're ready for blood. But the question is, will the market makers do the unthinkable and cause the market to pump? Because max pain is at 439. So be prepared for that just in case. Or will the market continue to sink because of the Evergrande news? And the best way to determine that would be to watch the levels. But I'm going to now talk about this news that's coming out so far. So for the pre-market, basically the market's looking bearish so far. The Dow futures are dropping. If you look at the S&P 500 ES, they're all dropping, looking relatively weak. Nasdaq Composite as well. Futures are not looking too good. The indices the same thing. And now we're starting to see the ETFs, following in the same trend. Looking at something interesting, the news is still talking about Target and Walmart, which have very different guidances. I know Target cut theirs for the 1 year forecast, but Walmart actually increased theirs. So very, very different outlooks for the next year or so. But don't forget that it doesn't change the fact that we are entering either a full-on recession or a recessionary environment. I would say the odds favor the recession, and the market still has, a lot of things to be pricing in. Now, looking at Bitcoin has been dropping quite a bit as well after we had some big news that came out involving SpaceX basically selling a bunch of Bitcoin, hundreds of millions worth. Not to mention other major companies out there are just continuing to see bearish catalysts, which are in essence affecting Bitcoin, not to mention the Chinese news. And finally, when it comes to China, this is the biggest piece of news I would say for the last day and a half, and that is this right here involving Evergrande, which is the giant of China. The second largest property developer in China has filed for bankruptcy. This is similar to what happened in 2008 in the US, at least to our American companies. And this is not good news whatsoever for the foreign investors. It's not good news for like hedge funds and etc. This is very, very bad news. And the pain that's going in China right now, the fear of contagion, the lack of demand, and the slowdown from an economic standpoint is going to have a big effect on the USA. So don't forget about this. This could lead to more slowdowns in the US. This is hurting American companies as well, which are heavily invested into these bonds, using them as collateral. This is not good news whatsoever, and this is part of why the market is selling off the way it is. Now, as far as market movers go, real quick before I talk about the charts, Palo Alto Networks is moving quite a bit. Ross is up 5% as of right now. We could see if this changes. They did do relatively well on earnings. Alibaba shares are making quite a move right now. They're actually dropping a lot after the Evergrande news. Xpeng as well. We're going to be watching this as well. I think they had earnings very, very recently. So that's about it in terms of the big moves. Now let's talk about the market very quickly. I'm going to switch over to TradingView. Right now, we can draw out this trend line very roughly and you can see that the market's trying to technically hold this support, but it's just barely holding on, not looking too good. The overall trend is looking very weak. If we continue to just downward trend like this, it's going to take us straight down to about 431.5. That is the next target on SPY as this thing continues to slide. However, I just want to remind you all that we have a lot of options expiring, so we shouldn't be too fixated on one direction. Those very, very tricky market makers would benefit the best if they close SPY very close to like 439 or closer to that, to cause as much pain as possible, to get as many of those options to expire worthless. Because remember, the market makers are selling the options. They're selling all these different options. They want to cause pain for the people who are buying options, right? So that means they're going to benefit the best if they try to push the market up. No guarantees though with all this bad news, okay? So they want it to be around like 439 to 438, like this entire high level. We will see if that ends up happening. But for now, here's what you want to watch for. So for now, we're looking quite bearish. We're just continuing to sell off more and more and more from a technical standpoint. Okay. I'm not saying that this is what will happen, but just look at this. We're basically selling off like this. We may continue to just slide and slide and slide all the way down to about 431.5. It's about 430. This range right here, this entire range right here is where we have a lot of support. It's very probable that buyers may try to step in around this 431 area. This is the next major support, 431.5 to about 430, this entire zone. So we might see something like this where it continues to slide and then tries to like bounce afterwards off this level and just try to make its way back up. That's very probable. But I just want to note that there's no guarantee that any of these levels are just going to be tested this early. It could just start to flush like much quicker, and they could just take it all the way down here before getting some kind of like liquidity grab before pushing the market back up on Monday. So this is what's very probable if we do continue selling off like this. So make sure that you are well aware of this. And this is also Monday, like this like bounce could come on Monday. But this is what it's looking like. If somehow the news is very bad and we even like break below for 30, I mean, we're going to start flushing even lower. But for now, I'm not really going to talk about this unless this actually happens. I mean, 429, we also have some support there. But like I said before, it's just, it hasn't happened yet. So we're going to be watching this level very carefully. Now, if they somehow try to reverse the market, you're going to be watching 434.8 as resistance, 435 if we manage to break this. We have 436.5 next. If we get above that, there is hope for 438, but it's looking very unlikely we're going to go that high. But if that does happen, it's just going to be because of the market makers manipulating the markets because of the options chain. I just want to be as honest as possible. What looks more likely? Well, it looks like we're starting to respect this trend line right here. We're respecting this trend line. The market may continue to slide. We are looking weak right now, and the odds greatly favor us either coming up just a little bit and just continuing to tank, just like how we did yesterday, and coming down to at least 431.5. That does seem more probable now, looking at the current trend. But just to be safe, we're going to be watching to see if we continue to break down. If we fail to get back above 434.8, then that's most likely what's going to happen. As far as something else like Tesla goes, Tesla's also looking very weak this morning, especially amidst all the Chinese news that came out. We can even redraw this trend line, but like I said before, like it's just not looking that great for Tesla. So as far as Tesla goes, we have a new trend line of support. We have to like readjust these. Sometimes this happens, guys. Completely normal. There's nothing like out of the ordinary for us to have to like readjust trend lines. Tesla is looking very weak right now, hitting support right now. It's currently trying to hold around this 213 area. The next critical support is going to be close to 212. We're also testing resistance at 215, looking very, very weak. If this thing continues to slide, you're going to be watching 212. Then after that, we have like this 210 to 209 area coming next as major support. This is most likely going to be where Tesla ends up at this point. We're going to be watching for a little bounce in the open. Maybe it tries to make its way back up to like 218 or so, 215 to 218. If it does get above that, rejects. And if it breaks below the low we have from the pre-market, we're going to be watching this thing test 212 to potentially 210 very soon. That seems more probable with the current trend as it's looking more bearish. But just to be safe, we're going to be watching to see if it breaks below the previous low we have right here. If it truly breaks below 212, if 212 breaks, then yes, we could see Tesla sink a lot more. Watch for that very, very carefully. It does look more bearish. And if it does try to bounce, I mean, we have resistance, by the way, at like 217.6. Above that, I mean, 221 is a possibility, but it looks very unlikely right now. It looks unlikely looking at the current trend. There's going to be this gap right here. So could Tesla try to like fill this gap at 218, then reject and come down? That's another possibility. So just watch for this thing to try to push above 215, see if it could break this or not. If so, 218 is a possibility before it may just like reject at resistance. Then eventually it could just continue to slide and come all the way back down to 210. That seems like a magnet for Tesla. That's very likely it's going to test 209 to 210. For Nvidia stock, okay, Nvidia is going to be very interesting. We still have this decent looking formation. We're starting to break below our trend line, though, looking relatively weak. I talked about this possibility yesterday, which direction could end up breaking. We actually broke below our support. We're looking relatively weak on Nvidia. Going to be looking for a back test. So what oftentimes happens is stocks hit support, they kind of like bounce and get a back test of our trend lines like this. So it could get a back test right here at this resistance around 428 to 430. Could it go up to about 433? I wouldn't rule that out. It is a possibility. But then if it rejects and comes right back down, that's going to be a sign of weakness. So watch for a move like that, either a back test or like this thing retesting this area before coming back down. And if it just straight up, if it doesn't even get much of a back test, if it's a very, very minor bounce and starts breaking down, watch 425 as support. If that fails us, 420 is going to be on the table for Nvidia, and even lower levels than that, right? Those are also going to be very possible. So it's unfortunate that this is happening, but it is what it is. We can't really change this. We're going to be watching these next levels below 420 if that ends up being the case. We also have this support right here. 416 is going to be the next level too. So I'm going to be watching this 416 area, 420 breaks. Then we also have like 410. But I just want to be clear, guys. Unfortunately, Nvidia is looking relatively weak for the morning. Unfortunately, the whole market is with all this negative news involving China and what the Fed was talking about. So watch for a potential back test, a little bounce in the open. See if it gets a back test or not, and then watch to see if it ends up holding 425. If that breaks, you're going to be watching these next supports way down here, unfortunately, and that is what it is for Nvidia. Now for the QQQ, looking at the triple Q, same thing is going on. This thing actually broke some critical support. 357 has broken, and this is huge because this was a very, very important level. You can actually see it back here. Right here, this is where this thing got a crazy bounce in the past, and now it has broken critical support, filling the gap down to about 355. And the next major support on this thing is going to be close to about 350 now. We do have some support at 355 we're holding so far, so we're going to be watching that level. But just from what I remember, we have this level, and then going back on the chart, right, we have 350 coming next as critical major support. And besides that major support, I'm just going to make this like yellow and a little bit bigger. So that's going to be our major support down there. There's also 352 to 352.5, this entire range right here, which we're going to be watching for on the triple Q to see if this holds. So we're going to be watching these levels very, very carefully. I was also eyeing this support right about here. So this is, pretty big. The fact that the triple Q has broken some critical support, it is looking very weak right now. So we're going to be watching this 355 area. If it breaks, it's going to sink a lot lower. Not going to be a good sign for tech. What else is affecting the market is going to be like Apple stock and just a couple of other things. I think this video is kind of like dragging a bit, so I'm going to be kind of quick right now. Apple's also looking relatively weak. If it breaks 170. 170 is going to be key support right now if it continues to slide. If 170 breaks, you're going to be watching 168, and that could drag the market down. The dollar is also trying to push above resistance, which is looking bullish, which is not good for the markets. That's bearish for the markets as the dollar is bullish. The 10-year treasury yield is kind of flat, coming down just a bit, but nothing too serious. So we're going to be watching resistance right now. Let's see if Apple could hold these levels. Can Apple try to hold above 172? If it does so, this could help the market. If it continues to slide, 170 is going to come to 168, and if those end up breaking, it's not going to be a good sign. So anyways, I want to just end the video from here, guys. I'm sorry this video is kind of long. I was talking a little bit too much. Have a great day. Watch your levels very carefully. See if the market could bounce off support or not. And if anything, is looking more bearish at the time I'm recording this. So do what you have to do and take care, everyone. Sorry for making this video too long. Take care, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Market to the moon, and peace out.